Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we are on the website of Brompton's auctioneers based in the UK, and we're having a look at one of their fine sales. So this sale is running from the 25th of October to the 1st of November, so bidding has opened. We can have a look and see some of the bids so far. There are I believe over 200 lots in this auction, 224, so we'll try and get through that. So like I said, this is based in the UK, so if you're bidding in the EU or internationally, check all the specs and stuff all up here about kind of fees and CITES and exports, etc, etc. I believe the buyer's premium is 20%, but a bit like Teresio, if you're the first bidder and then you end up winning it, you get a couple of % off, I think. But we'll check that as we go through. Yeah, it's been an absolutely crazy day at my end, so I'm going a bit mad, so I'll probably end up talking a lot of rubbish, but yeah, let's just try and crack on with it, and let's just get through and see what we can find. So a French silver mounted violin bow by Joseph Arthur Vigneron, pair 5 to 8,000 is the estimate there. We'll try and just speed through because, like I said, it's been a bit crazy today. A fine English silver mounted violin bow by Samuel Allen. I'm away for a little bit, so I need to do this auction today. A French silver mounted violin bow by Eugene Cugno-Huri. There you go, and it's certificate of Raffin, good old Raffin certificate. A French nickel mounted violin bow by Morison Frère. Also with a Raffin certificate there, and a 3/4 French nickel mounted violin bow by a member of the Bazin family there, and a fine silver mounted violin bow probably by Nicolas Mayer. Got a few more pictures there. A French silver mounted violin bow probably workshop of Dominique Pecat. There's obviously condition notes and everything here. So a rare English silver mounted violin bow by James Tubbs, London, circa 1875. That's a interesting document. So this rare octagonal bow is illustrated as plate number 10 in the Retford Centenary Exhibition, Ealing Strings, London, 1975. Retford also refers to this bow on page 73 of his books Bows and Bowmakers. Excellent. There we go. Bit of provenance there. French silver mounted violin bow by Alfred Lamy after Viola, with a Raffin certificate there. An English silver mounted violin bow by Hills and Sons, good old Hill bow there. And a French nickel mounted violin bow, School of Grand Adam there, school Raffin certificate. A French nickel mounted violin bow by Charles Louis Bazin. Fortunately, another Raffin certificate. Time we just have to crack on really. A very fine French gold and tortoiseshell mounted violin bow by Francois Nicolas Vorin. 20 to 30,000 is the estimate, and 20,000 is the current bid. So that's doing pretty well. A fine French silver mounted violin bow by Francois Nicolas Vorin, and then it's got a certificate of Peter Oxley and Stephanie Janssen. French nickel mounted violin bow by Nicolas Mayer. 10 to 15,000 is the estimate. There's no bids so far. French gold mounted violin bow by Jean-Jacques Millant. 5 to 10,000 is the estimate. 4 bids, 5.5 it's up to. An English ebony and chase gold mounted violin bow by W.E. Hills and Sons. Some nice bows in this auction. An English silver mounted violin bow by W.E. Hills. Lovely. A fine English silver and aluminium mounted violin bow by William Charles Retford. So curious. 3 to 5,000 there. An English silver mounted violin bow by W.E. Hills and Son. And a French silver mounted violin bow by Charles Nicolas Bazin. An interesting silver mounted violin bow. Yeah, definitely looks quite curious. A silver mounted violin bow, probably German. Excellent. A fine English silver mounted birthday celebration violin bow by James Tubbs. Wow, okay. plate 15 in the Retford centenary. It's an interesting looking bow. French nickel mounted violin bow by Jean-Joseph Martin, circa 1870. Salcho and Sons certificate there. An English silver mounted violin bow by Dodd. There you go. A French nickel mounted violin bow by Emile Francois Houchard. Good old Raffin certificate again. There's some very nice bows in this auction. Silver mounted violin bow attributed to and probably by John Dodd. French silver mounted violin bow probably by Charles Claude Husson. A silver mounted violin bow probably French. A very fine French gold and tortoiseshell mounted violin bow by Andre Vigneron. Okay. French silver mounted violin bow by Alfred Lamy with a Raffin certificate. A fine English silver mounted violin bow by William Charles Retford. A German silver mounted violin bow by Albert Nürnberger. A German silver mounted violin bow by Otto Derschmidt. A very fine English violin by Arthur and John Betts, London 1851, after Niccolo Amati, 10 to 15,000. It's the estimate, no bids so far. Length of back 355. Bit of a condition report there. This violin was almost certainly made by Bernard Simon Fent II for Arthur and John Betts in exceptional state of preservation. Well, I mean, that would be quite a good good investment then if it was a Fent. So very curious. A French violin by Charles J.B. Colin Mazarfu, Mirecourt 1936. Sold with a letter from Len Callaway detailing the violin's provenance back to when it was made. That's quite curious. An interesting violin attributed to Silvio Vezio Paoletti, Florence 1922. Estimates 2 to 4,000 there. Pardon me, length of back 356. A good German violin, circa 1890. That's a bid on that. 358 is the length of back. A very interesting violin, probably Italian, first half of the 19th century. 15 to 20,000 there. An Italian violin by Azzo Roscali, Milan, circa 1920, 6 to 10,000, length of back 356. Starting bids of 5,000 there. An interesting violin, possibly Northern Italy, circa 1800. Yeah, looks quite interesting. A good violin, probably Italian, 2 to 4,000. 3 bids so far. A French violin, circa 1750. An English violin by John Edward Harris, Gateshead, 1924, with a certificate actually from the maker, and it looks like quite a nice, nice varnish actually on that. Very nice. Photograph and a bio, so yeah, quite curious. Starting bids is 700. This looks quite nice. A good violin attributed to Lorenzo Bellafontana, Genoa, 1947. Length of back 355. Lot 49, an Italian violin by Luigi Akali, Pistoria, 2018, 356. So it's another modern Italian, and we have seen this maker's work in a few different auctions now, but it looks good. A German violin, probably by Johann Gottlob Ficker, Marknikirchen, circa 1780. 357 is the length of back there. Interesting scroll. A Scottish violin by Archibald Ritchie, Dundee, 1895. 360 is the length of back there. Couple of bids on that one. A fine Italian violin by Alfonso della Corte, Naples, 1863. 20,000 starting bid. There's no bids on it so far. Length about 353. Good English Violin by George Crask, Manchester, 1840, 7 to 10,000. Length about 360, 6,000 is the thing. I do like these Crask instruments, they are very interesting, a bit variable in quality, but this one actually looks fairly nice. Yep, looks like quite a nice one. Fascinating maker. An Italian violin by Emanuele Cottoni, Pistoria, 2021, a very new kind of Italian here. This looks like a nice instrument. Certificate of Gabriele Natali. Nice varnish on that. A violin by Vladimir Lutsev, Ukraine, 1982. Not often we see a Ukrainian violin. A violin by a member of the Hop family, Klingenthal, circa 1770. Looks interesting enough there. 358 back. An Italian violin by Armando at Altavilla, Naples, circa 1940, after Guadagnini. Well, 11,000 is the current bid, estimate 12 to 18,000 there. Certificate of Dmitry Gindin, 2021. 356 is the length of back. Yep, looks like an interesting instrument. An Italian violin, Circle of Rivolta, first half of the 19th century, 10 to 15,000 there. Florian Leonhard certificate. An Italian violin by Massimo Negroni, Cremona, 2021, length of back 358. Once again, another of these modern Italian makers that we see quite a lot in these auctions. Comes with a certificate. French violin by Albert de Blay, Miracle, 1922. And a good German violin attributed to Lea Aschauer, Mittenwald, 1955. 356, length of back. And a violin, excellent, that's why I like the kind of generic ones. Labelled Luteria Italiana, length of back 358. Looks interesting enough. An Italian violin by Gaetano Garda, Brescia, circa 1920, 30,000 there. 358, length of back. And these condition reports don't really seem to show a great deal. An Italian violin by Giulio Digani, Venice, circa 1900, starting bid 18,000, 20 to 30,000 is the estimate. 356. It's a nice looking instrument. I quite like this actually. It's a very deeply kind of carved scroll there, but interesting. Yeah, like that. A violin attributed to Michael Platner, Rome, circa 1730, even 1930. That'd be not quite right. 7 to 10,000. That's quite a stout looking instrument. Nice varnish. 356 back. Obviously check the repairs. We've been kind of ignoring that just for time's sake, but you can see it on the screen anyway, the text. An English violin by William Luff, London, 1992, 5 to 8,000, 354 is the length of back. Okay. An interesting violin attributed to Fratelli Fischer, circa 1763, and its length of back is 357. Ooh. Interesting back there. And an English violin by Henry J, London, circa 1770. That's cool. I do like some of these London instruments. And a certificate from John Dilworth there. An Italian violin by Gianpiero Farina, Cremona, 2013, so another fairly modern Cremonese instrument with a certificate from the maker. And an English violin by Joseph Allwood, London, circa 1790. Interesting violin. 361 is the length of the back. A good French violin by Francois Cousin, Neuf Chateau, circa 1850, after Del Gesù. No bids on that so far. 352, that's quite a respectable length for a French-made instrument. Actually, looks quite nice. I'm surprised in a way. An Italian violin by Luigi Akali, Pistoria, 2019. One bid on that of 3,000. Another modern violin by Mr. Akali even. A French violin by Georges Apparout, Miracle, 1932. Length of back 355. Original neck and bass bar. The violin also appears to have never been opened. That's quite curious. An English violin by Job Arden, Wilmslow, circa 1900. Okay, length of back 358. There's always lots of interesting blurb on this auction. But I'm just going through really because it's a bit late here. And I am going a bit mad. A good French violin by Charles Moynal, Paris, 1930. Length of back 360. A fine and rare Italian violin by Agostino de Planis, Genoa, 1778. 30 to 40,000, there is the estimate. Length of back 352. The violin is in an exceptional state of preservation, so that's good. Interesting scroll there. Looks like a nice varnish. And there's Hill's certificate there. An English violin by William Luff, London, 1984, 353 back. A violin attributed to Bruno Barbieri, Mantua, 1985. And there's a letter from the maker as well. A French violin by Moyno Sherpatel, Paris, 1928. 355 is the length of the back. An Italian violin by Camilli, Mantua, circa 1740. 3 bids on that, 30 to 50. Length of back 352. So this is a composite really. Later table made for the violin, probably by Giuseppe Galliano, and Dendro is 1781, 1782. This has a very, very nice back. It's a nice looking instrument for sure. Any of these kind of Mantuan instruments are quite interesting in fact. So related information, random letters and numbers. That's don't know if that's going to be a link or something. But yeah, that's interesting, one to watch out. We're on to some more bows, it seems. A French silver mounted viola bow by Louis Morizot Frere. Okay. And a French silver mounted viola bow by Roger and Max Millant. How curious. And a Swiss silver mounted viola bow by Johannes Finkel. Okay. And an English gold mounted viola bow by W.E. Hills and Sons. That looks quite fancy there. And an English silver mounted viola bow by W.E. Hills and Sons. Let's have a quick look at this. A French silver and ivory mounted viola bow, possibly by Morizot Frere. A fine and rare English viola by Daniel Parker, London, circa 1710. Wow, 15 to 20,000 is the estimate. Current bid 13. Length back 411. Later scroll probably by the Hill Workshop. This is quite a beautiful 1. Interesting. An Italian viola by Giuseppe Stefanini, Brescia, circa 1970. 3 bids on that so far. Sold with certificate of Eric Blott, Cremona, 2019. An Italian viola by Francesco Zanoli, 1989. Certificate of Carlson and Newman. An interesting viola, possibly Naples, first half of the 19th century. It's an interesting back there. 1 bids on that, 3.5. An interesting viola after Francesco Ventura de Linarol. 3 bids on that, 2,400 so far. This is very interesting. If you don't know the work of Francesco Ventura de Linarol, I definitely recommend investigating it. This I do not think is of that period, because we're talking, you know, a very early maker, kind of 16th century kind of time period. This I think is most likely a copy, maybe 19th century or so, but still an interesting looking instrument. And a good viola attributed to Giuseppe Pellicani, Modena, 1968. And a good Portuguese viola by Antonio Capella Espino, 1979, after the MacDonald Stradivari. 1 bid on that. And this viola was featured in an exhibition by Ealing Strings. So there you go. I think the Capella instruments are doing quite well value-wise. An Italian viola by Stefano Conia, Cremona, 1973. And an English viola by Samuel Blakey Wilkinson, Leeds, 1890. An Italian viola by Alfredo Gianotti, Milan, 1974. A good viola attributed to and possibly by Franco Barozzi, Rivereto, 1948. Repairs to neck. An English viola by Charles and Samuel Thompson, London, 1786, 5 to 8,000. 0 bids so far. This is a nice looking instrument. I think I just really like these old English instruments. They're very beautiful. Very beautiful. A French viola, probably Paris, first half of the 18th century. No bids on that. Interesting. A fine mahogany double violin case. There you go. No bids on that thus far. An English silver mounted cello bow by W.E. Hills and Sons. And a French nickel mounted cello bow. Workshop of Lebert. Raffin certificate. French silver mounted cello bow. Member of the Bazin family. Possibly Charles. And an English silver mounted cello bow by Hills and Son. A good silver mounted cello bow, probably by John Dodd. And a German golden ebony mounted cello bow by Gerhard Penzel. A silver mounted cello bow, probably by Charles Picat. An interesting silver mounted cello bow, possibly French. A cello bow, possibly School of Knopf. Interesting button. A fine English cello by Joseph Hill, London, circa 1770, with certificate of J&A Beer, 1978. An Italian cello by Riccardo Bergonzi, Cremona, 1994. 3 bids on that, up to 15,000 there. Certificate of the maker. An English cello by Henry Lockie Hill, London, circa 1815. Sold with certificate of John Dilworth. It's a nice looking instrument. A good English cello, Circle of Thomas Kennedy, London, circa 1830, 12 to 18,000 is the estimate there. Certificate of David Dolan and Norman Daines, Bath, 1984, attributing the cello to Forster. A fine small-sized Italian cello by Giuseppe Dolenz, Trieste, circa 1850. No bids so far on that. 6 to 8,000. Length about 583. That is quite small. A fine English cello by Simon Andrew Forster, London, circa 1840. 25 to 35,000 pounds there. Let's have a quick look at the pictures. Cello retains its original neck. No bids on that so far. A good English cello by Goulding and Co, London, circa 1810, 12 to 18,000. No bids. Not seeing many bids on English cellos today. A German cello, first half of the 19th century. No bids on that either. And a cello, probably French, circa 1890. A fine English cello by Thomas Kennedy, London, circa 1820. No bids on that either. Slow days for cello. Certificate of Peter Waters, Wallingford, 2014. A good English cello by Lockie Hill, London, circa 1790. That's quite nice F-holes on that. 7 to 10,000. Once again, no takers. The cello bidders are not out at the moment. A good and interesting cello, circa 1800. No bids on this either. It does look quite curious. An Italian cello, School of Pistoria, second half of the 18th century. 60 to 80,000 there. Definitely a curious one. An English cello by Thomas Smith, London, circa 1750. 12 to 18,000. And really not many takers for cellos at all today, which is quite unfortunate. A fine German cello by George Winterling, Hamburg, 1909, 12 to 18,000. Repairs to the ribs and the back soundpost cracking table. See diagram. An English Grecian harp by Thomas Dodd, London, circa 1820. No bids so far. That's quite striking. A very fine French gold and tortoiseshell mounted violin bow by Joseph Henri. 4 bids of that, 30,000 so far, so that has real potential. Hills and Sons certificate. CITES restrictions there, remember. Tortoiseshell ivory, it's all a bit difficult. A French silver mounted violin bow by Jean-Joseph Martin. And a German silver mounted violin bow by Albert Nürnberger. A German nickel mounted violin bow by H.R. Frechner there. A contemporary Baroque violin bow by Ken Cameron. There you go, very good throughout apparently. An interesting silver mounted violin bow attributed to Francois Javier Tort. So 8 to 12,000 there is the estimate. It's 7,000 starting bid. An English silver mounted violin bow by W.E. Hills and Sons. 1 bid on that one. And a French nickel mounted violin bow by Charles Nicolas Bazar. A German silver mounted violin bow by H.R. Frechner. Should get some good pictures. A German silver mounted violin bow by Karl Heinrich Knopf. Certificate there from Carl Schmidt. Fine English silver mounted violin bow by William Charles Retford. An English silver mounted violin bow by W.E. Hills and Sons. A silver mounted violin bow by possibly Circle of Claude Thomasin. A French silver mounted violin bow by Victor Fetique. A good silver mounted violin bow, possibly Marc Lebert. A good silver mounted violin bow, possibly French. A French silver mounted violin bow, School of Ouchard, probably by Gilles Duhaut. An English silver-mounted violin bow by William C. Retford. A French silver-mounted violin bow by Émile François Houchard. A French nickel-mounted violin bow by Charles Alfred Bazin, with a Raffin certificate. An interesting German silver-mounted violin bow. A French silver-mounted violin bow by Nicolas Malin. A French silver-mounted violin bow workshop of JTL after J.J. Martin. A French nickel-mounted violin bow JTL again after J.J. Martin. Pierre Guillaume certificate there. French nickel-mounted violin bow by Charles Nicolas Bazin. Raffin certificate. French nickel-mounted violin bow by Louis Bazin. A French nickel-mounted violin bow by Nicolas Malin. A German silver-mounted violin bow, possibly by Albert Nürnberger. A French nickel-mounted violin bow by Charles Louis Bazin. Raffin certificate. A good silver-mounted violin bow, probably French. A German silver-mounted violin bow by Ludwig Bausch. A French nickel-mounted violin bow, school of Dominique Picat. An English ebony-mounted violin bow, school of Dodd. Interesting bow that. A German silver-mounted violin bow by Albert Nürnberger. A good French silver-mounted violin bow. An Italian violin by Giuseppe Castagnino, Shivari, 1927, 15 to 18,000, sorry, is the estimate. No bid so far. Length of back 359. An interesting violin, possibly workshop of Biziac, 7 to 10,000. 354 length of back. A French violin by Francois Gavines, Paris 1745. Length of back 361. Estimates 3.5 to 4.5. An Italian violin by Aristide Benini, Ascoli Pinceno, 1931. I completely just destroyed that name in every way possible. Length back 357. Interesting varnish, quite bright. An Italian violin by Bruno Donna, 2020. One bid there so far. It's quite bright fittings. Sold with certificate of the maker there. An Italian violin attributed to Felix Mori Costa, Parma, circa 1800. 8 to 10,000 is the estimate. Interesting wood choice. Quite like the front actually. Not quite 100% sure on the back, but interesting nevertheless. A French violin, probably by Guillaume Malin, Mircourt, circa 1820. It's interesting. A violin, my favourite, 357 back. It's got a Milan label, so lots of repairs. A Portuguese violin by Antonio Capella, Espino, 1986, after Giuseppe Rocca. Two bids there. Like I said, all the Capella stuff is sells very well. An Italian violin by Stefano Cogna, Cremona, 2021. Two bids on that. That is quite a striking back for sure. And you have the certificate of the maker as well. An Italian violin by Claudio Rampini, Pisa, 2002. And a Scottish violin by James Crawford, Edinburgh, circa 1890. With a receipt from Hills and Sons. And a violin by René Marichal, Algiers, 1932. And a violin labelled Grandini copy, or Ecole Grandini, Carlo Bergonzi copy, 4 bids on that so far. So interesting looking violin, repairs to skull. A fine violin by Alfonso della Corte at Naples, 1881. 4 bids on that, 25,000 so far. It's an interesting looking violin, and it's got a Hill certificate there as well, so that's good. An Italian violin by Giorgio Gatti, Turin, first half of the 20th century. Estimates 12 to 18,000. Length of back 355. A Baroque violin, probably German, second half of the 18th century. No bids on that so far, 5 to 8,000. Okay. An Italian violin by Giancarlo Serrari, Shivari, 1984. Length of back 358. A fine French violin by Georges Chanot, Paris, circa 1875. After Stradivarius, 20 to 25,000 is the bids on that. Certificate of Bernard Millant, 1982. An Italian violin by Enrico Averna, Palermo, 1933. 1 bid of 5,000 on that so far. Estimate is 6 to 10,000. An interesting violin, second half of the 19th century. 5 to 8,000 is the estimate there. Length of back 355, labelled Goffredo Benedetto Rinaldi. So it's curious. An Italian violin by Riccardo Bergonzi, Cremona, 2008. Certificate of the maker. 3 bids on that so far. A violin labelled Cesare Pilastri, £1,800. An Italian violin by a member of the Pistoria family, probably Carlo Giuseppe, Milan, first half of the 18th century. Current bid 35, 3 bids on that, 35 to 45. So, interesting looking violin. Definitely curious. And an interesting violin, probably workshop of Biziac, Milan, at circa 1900. Certificate of Giacomo and Leandro Biziac, 1955, attributing the violin to Romeo Antonazzi with the help of his workshop. Interesting. An interesting violin, circa 1760. No bids on that so far. That's quite a curious one. And a French violin by Joseph Thiriot, Paris, circa 1780. Length of back 356. Certificate of Rampel. A good violin attributed to Luigi Bertelli, Verona, 1957. 1 bid on that. An Italian violin, School of Galliano, Naples, 1800s. 0 bids on that. It's 40 to 50,000 is the estimate there. An Italian violin by Carlo Carletti, Pieve di Cento, circa 1900. No bids on that at all. So there's a lot of Italian violins in this auction. It's quite a nice looking violin, I think, that one. A good and interesting violin, probably Italian, second half of the 19th century, 10 to 15,000. It's got a bid of 8,000 on it. Comes with a receipt from Emilio Malaguti, Milan. A good German violin, circa 1750. No bids on that so far. Nice kind of Baroque setup there. Seems interesting. An interesting violin attributed to Orfeo Carletti, Bologna, 1922. And an Italian violin by Bruno Donna, 1986, no bids on that so far. Certificate of the maker, interesting F-holes on that one. An Italian violin, School of Lorenzo Ventapane, Naples, circa 1820, no bids so far, 20 to 30,000 is the estimate on that. An Italian violin by Alfredo Contino, Naples, 1920, 15 to 20,000 is the estimate, no bids so far. A German Baroque violin by Matthias Johannes Koldes, 1741, 4 to 6,000 is the estimate, no bids so far. A good English violin by Charles John Wilkinson, London, circa 1920, no bids so far. That's interesting. And a good violin attributed to Goffredo Rinaldi. An Italian violin by Luigi Mozzani, Cento, 1917, 7 to 10,000. An English violin by William Luff, London, 1985. See a few Luff things about. And a good violin attributed to Leopold Vidam, Nuremberg, 1770, 4 to 6,000, length of back 351. No bids on this so far. It's a little surprising. A French violin by Paul Lorange, Marseille, 1934. No bids on this. And the ex Alfredo Campoli, a fine violin attributed to Giuseppe Rocca, Turin, 1831. No bids, estimates 30 to 50,000 pounds on that. It's got some documents here, so with photos and things like that, monographs. Sold with certificate of Cyril Jackson, so some provenance of that. An Italian violin by Raffaele and Antonio Galliano, Naples, circa 1850, 30 to 50,000 is the estimate there. A very fine Italian violin by Ferdinando Garamberti, Milan, 1926. Okay. And a fine Italian violin by Giovanni Grancino, Milan, 1696, one bid, 120,000 is bid. That's a fine looking violin, 150 to 180,000 there. Looks very nice. It's Wurlitz, our original label from 1696, certificate of Rembert Wurlitz, a 1951 in fact, length back 353. There's videos as well if you wanted to play it. Lot 223, the Ex Mosse, a very fine Italian violin by Niccolo Galliano, Naples, circa 1780. Starting bids of 130 grand, 150 to 200,000 is the estimate. There are no bids on it so far, but we're still in early days. Sold with certificate of Peter Biddulph, London, October 2021. So a kind of fresh one. Well, there's some background there on the provenance. And an important Italian violin by Peter Guarneri of Mantua, circa 1700, 180,000 starting bid, 0 bid so far, 200,000 to 250,000 is the estimate. There's a few pictures here. Obviously very important Mantuan maker, the origins of some of the Mantuan making, labelled with an Armatus label. Sold with certificate of Charles Beer Tonbridge 2021, so you can't ask for a better certificate really. Length of back 354. Yeah, let's see what the download the monograph. Yeah, very interesting. Well, so this has been the Brompton sale. Actually, very interesting. Some really interesting bows, really interesting violins. We didn't go into anything in super detail because it'd probably go on a bit longer if I did, and also I'm kind of definitely a little bit tired today, but a very interesting auction. I'll put the link in the description, and I really recommend that if you're interested in fine kind of violins, cellos, violas and bows, I would actually definitely look at this auction because there's some very interesting stuff in this auction today. So yeah, thanks for checking in, and until next time, ciao for now, and we'll talk about some more violins soon. Bye. Many thanks for tuning in to the Musical Instrument Investigator. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please like, subscribe and turn on notifications, and watch out for the next video coming soon.